All right, I wanted to do a video about strings and ropes and everything that I know and everything that I've learned in this category. But before I do that, I want to talk first about carabiners. And so I'm actually going to put all of this to the side and talk about carabiners for a few minutes, and then I'm going to upload a second video about strings and ropes, and I'll show you what I've learned about them over the years. So my family and I are recently rock climbing. We've done it in the gym for a while, but now we're going outdoors and we're hooking up to top rope sites around Chattanooga. And so one of the things that I've been studying and learning about is carabiner strengths and weaknesses and testing and markings, as well as slings, sometimes called runners, and the markings on them. In this case, this is rated to 22 kilonewtons. This carabiner is rated to 24 kilonewtons. And it's a really good starting point when you're dealing with string and rope, because obviously the climbers want to be safe and not die. And so as you begin to think about string and rope for your hammock, maybe, you can learn a lot from the climbing industry for the sake of safety. So couple different things on carabiners that I want to point out. The first thing is that the first rating that you have, in this case 20 kilonewtons, is along the long axis like this, which is the way that the carabiner is primarily used. Anything above 20 is considered climbing grade, and if you see something like UIAA, that means this is certified for climbing. The next number, in this case 7, is considered cross-loaded. So if you were to have the rope going in this direction. And then the last number you see, 7, is along the major axis if the gate is open, because the gate actually provides strength. As you pull on this very hard, this little wire gate will actually grab that little hook, or in this case, it hooks in this way through a key lock. Now, what's interesting about this is you think, oh, I need 24 kilonewtons to go climbing. Well, that's not true. You actually need 8. Or in this case, you actually only need 7. Now, why is that? Well, what happens is they've done tons of testing to find out when people fall, what kind of loads are on the carabiners, and it's normally roughly around 4. And so you have a safety factor of more than 4, and in that case, this is 7 and this is 8. Now, the thing is, these are designed to go climbing, and in climbing, it is known that the carabiners will get cross-loaded. They will go like this. So you don't need something that's 23 or 24 kilonewtons strong to go climbing. You really only need something 8. And the proof of that is that they let you, and they recommend that you go climbing with these biners, and they know that there are circumstances where they will get cross-loaded, and they want you to be safe under those circumstances, and they've decided that 8 is enough. And 8 is enough basically because it's about twice what you would normally see during a fall. And that's called a safety factor, in this case, a safety factor of 2. And they also know that these carabiners get worn down over time. In this case, I've only lost the paint because we haven't been doing this very long. And they get dinged and dented, and so they lose a little bit of their life. And so they don't want the devices to be right on the edge, okay? Now, these soft goods, they degrade faster than the hard goods, and so these are rated for quite a bit higher than they need to be. But think about the fact that if this is rated to 22, but it's cross-loading a carabiner, or the carabiner gate is open, well, this carabiner open is only good to 8. So you can see how this is actually way overbuilt if you fall on an open or cross-loaded carabiner, and this becomes your weak link by a significant margin. In this case, almost threefold, 8 to 24 or 8 to 22. So you can see already that things are quite overbuilt. Now, you may ask, why did we build this? Why was this built to 23? Well, what happens is we really have to build this so that it's safe and it hits the minimum requirements in cross-loading. And when you do that, when you make this thick enough and large enough and beefy enough, you sort of get this 23 along the major axis for free. It's kind of like cars. You may wonder why a minivan can go 130 miles an hour. It's actually because we want, in 4th or 5th or whatever your final gear is in your minivan, we want the engine to be at a relatively low RPM, so that when you're doing 70 on the freeway, you get pretty good gas mileage. But in order to do that with the engine horsepower that we have, in order to hit a good MPG at 70, you sort of automatically get this vehicle speed range all the way up into 120 or 130. The engineers didn't aim for the minivan to do 130. They aimed for the minivan to do 70 and get good gas mileage, and you kind of just get that for free, the high vehicle speed. And it's kind of the same thing. This is actually designed to be safe in this direction, but as we achieve that, you kind of automatically get this overkill number in this direction. Okay, so that's a little bit about carabiners. There's two types. There are, I think they call them solid gates, and then there are wire gates. One of the downsides of this is that because of the inertia of this thing, as it bangs against a rock, it can actually open. Of course, this is a locker, but if the lock had come undone, or if somebody had screwed it up instead of down and gravity had worked and loosened it, then you can get this. And you can get that to a smaller degree with wire gates, but not as often. These are also much lighter, and so you can carry more of them up a pitch, whereas these are quite a bit heavier, and of course these are more expensive. Okay, so there's kind of three grades of carabiners, and this was one of the things I wanted to talk about before we get into ropes. And that is basically climbing carabiners, whether that's locking or unlocking or non-locking, and that's basically anything above 20. So this little guy is also capable of rock climbing, as is this guy, even though they're quite a bit smaller than this one. And then you have your, what a lot of people will call hammock carabiners. So carabiners that are sold that are recommended for hammocks are normally in the 12 kilonewton range. And this is also a bit overkill. You could trust your body weight on this if you had to in a rock climbing situation, but you'd never want to unless it was an emergency. And then you have these little keychain style carabiners. You probably all had one of these at one point in life. And these say not for climbing, and these don't even have ratings on them. They don't even really try and tell you how much these are supposed to hold. This is my favorite of the small carabiners. You can get these on Mountain Laurel Designs or Gossamer Gear, Ripstop by the roll, but the best place to get them is Amazon. They're just a mini wire gate beaner. And what I like about these more than something like this isn't necessarily the weight, it's that these require a little piece of bent metal inside of here for the spring action, and that just tends to break a lot. The other thing is, like, basically it's broken now. That's it, it's broken. Can't fix it. Even if you put it back here, it's broken. The other thing is, this is normally quite sharp, and this is quite sharp, so it gets caught on stuff. These little wire gate carabiners, they're quite a bit more robust. Even if you take the gate apart, you can reassemble it quite easily. And there's basically no sharp edges on these, and they weigh less. So they're simpler, more robust, less sharp, lighter weight, and cheaper. So I prefer these over these. Now, there is a carabiner that's kind of in between all of that, and that is this guy. This, you can see the brand there, I got them off Amazon. This is rated for 8 kilonewtons. Now, this is kind of odd because they're basically 8 is in some ways too low for hammocks, you could say. Certainly not enough for climbing, and there's no ratings across cross-loading. But what I like about these is 8 kilonewtons is, in my opinion, enough for hammocking. I would justify that claim by looking at a long time manufacturer of hammocks, in this case Hennessy hammocks, and their suspension ropes that hold the hammock off the trees for the backpacker model are only rated to 1,200 pounds, and 8 kilonewtons is in like the 17 or 1,800 pound force arena. So this is, for me, acceptable for hammocking. Now, some people don't even feel comfortable on this, and they want, some big climbing carabiner, and that's fine. You can do whatever you like, and you can do whatever you're comfortable with, but there's no reason that you need a carabiner like this for hammocking. And the fact of the matter is, this is even a bit of an overkill. They do that because they don't want to get sued, and they don't want 5 college guys in one hammock to break this. They'd rather something else break and it not come back on them. And they would always rather put in a safety factor in there than give you just what you need. But if you like to hone in on just what you need, then these are a very nice option. Another suggestion in terms of weight would be the company Dutchware. They are a long-time hammock manufacturer and all sorts of outdoor things, and they include carabiners that are only rated for 1,000 pounds. And this is rated for, well, 8 kilonewtons. You can do the math. I think it's about 1,800 pounds. So what I would suggest is if you're going to do some sort of climbing, then buy from a big name like Petzl or Black Diamond or Mammut or something like that, and buy climbing certified gear, lockers where you need a locker, and wire gates where wire gates are considered permissible, like on a quick draw. And then if you want to buy some hammock style, if you're going to be super rowdy in the hammock with 2 or 3 people, maybe go for this. If not, an 8 kilonewton should do you fine. And again, it goes back to our discussion about weak links. There's really no point in having 22 kilonewtons here if you're going to be cross-loading carabiners and you know this is going to break at 8. And so, again, this is going to degrade faster in the sun, and over time they say to throw these away after 10 years. You don't have to do that with a beaner, so that's part of the reason they're overbuilt. But there's no point in overbuilding, you know, 3/4 of your suspension system on a hammock or something and then having this super weak link. All of that other overbuilt stuff is really just a waste of money and probably also of weight. So yeah, climbing beaners for climbing, and hammock or 8 kilonewton beaners for hammocking, and little wire gate carabiners for everything else. I think these hold about 100 pounds. I've never bent or broken one. So you can hold quite a lot on there, and they don't weigh a lot and they don't cost a lot. I'm not a big fan of these. They're big and sharp and not that strong. Well, they're not strong enough to hang on, and that makes them just an overkill for almost everything else. And I'm not a fan of these little guys because that little spring is normally cheaply made, and there aren't really any high, expensive, reputable companies that are making little carabiners like this. So, all right, that was my sort of rope intro video. I wanted to do this first because I wanted to show how I think about ratings for ropes and how I decide what I think is safe and reasonable. And part of the reason I think what I do is because what I see in the carabiner as well as the rope industry when it comes to climbing. And so that's my justification, and I hope that makes some sense to you all. If not, give this a thumbs down. So I know whether you get it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, go check out 2 channels if you're into this kind of stuff. One is called How Not To. The guys break these carabiners and they break these slings and they show the way that they fail. It's super interesting. It'll give you a lot of confidence in climbing gear. And then there's another climbing guy I like. I think he's from Switzerland. It's called Hard is Easy. Both channels are really interesting. Go check them out. Take care, folks.